Hi, I'm Grant. Welcome. In this video, I'm going to draw Matthew McConaughey step by step. You can follow along. This is actually part one. In part one, we're going to draw the outline of the face in all the parts. And in part two, that we're going to do more shade in and add more detail. I've created downloads of each of the part one and two. The first thing in part one, we're going to make a 7x5 grid, which you can download and trace underneath your paper. And then we're going to do an outline of the face. I've also included some theory behind the drawing in another post. So it really is a 3-video post. The reference photo is from artofheadshots.com, and I'll provide a link in the description below. So portrait or portrait victim, what's this all about? Well, when I first started making portraits, my portraits weren't that great. So instead of making really a portrait, I made a portrait victim of the person that was sitting for me, or as a reference. And as I got better, I started making more portraits. But portraits are very hard to do. If you're out by a little bit, then it doesn't look like the person. So it's very challenging. But if you do get the likeness of the person, then you're doing a great job. Here's the list of resources that you'll need to create this drawing. Now, you just might sit there and never do my portrait. That would be a shame. Now get your pencil out and let's begin. Will you make a portrait, or will I become your portrait victim? We are going to use a modified Loomis as the template, and we're going to make a grid, create a silhouette, and then do a Blockin. In part two, we're going to do the details and the shading. Don't worry about making mistakes. Here I made a mistake. The first time I drew this, I made his chin too long, and I didn't catch it till pretty late in the process. I hope you have fun and enjoy the process. The first step is we need to make a grid. Now I've provided a download so you can use the tracing method, or you can create a grid just making a 7x5 grid. I provided some downloads of templates. The easiest way to make a grid is print this off, put it under some nice paper, and trace it out. Okay, there you can see it there, and you trace it to the areas and make your grid. And make something like this on the nice paper. So I used this kind of paper. This is a 60 pound paper. It has some smooth, but it has some texture to it, so the graphite can hold. Now, what happens if I didn't provide something like this? How would you make that? So we are going to make a 7x5 grid. So one of the easiest ways to do this is to make a square. Figure what size you want. That's roughly square. We can use a ruler. And to find the center of a square, you just make an X like this. And so now we have a 2x2 square. So I'm going to divide this again into halves. Okay. Now it's a 4x4 square. So now I'm going to make a 5x5 square. This is about the same distance as there. I'm just doing this by eye. You could get a ruler out to do it. And that's the 5th column. So all these are square. Okay, so now it's a 5x5 column. I mean 5x5 grid. So to get the 7, you just add 2 more rows. So that's about there and about there. Now you have a 7x5 grid. Okay. And Loomis's template is divided this into 3. 1, 2, and 3. And that's a half up there. And this would be your hairline. This is your brow line. This is your nose, and this is your chin. See how it works out there? Okay. The next thing you do, you want to find the center of the big square. Again, I'm not using a ruler, just to make it quick here. I'm going to find the center of that big square and there it is right there. So this is the eye line in the very center, and this is where the bridge of your nose would be. I'm putting that in. So this is where your one eye goes up here, in here, an eye there, an eye there. This is your nose line here. Goes down here. This is where your nose would be. Okay, in your mouth, we divide this last 2 rows into 3. So there's one in there. There's about, these are in thirds. Your mouth is between the center of your eyeballs down. Your mouth would be there, so that's the mouth. And your chin box would be here. Now the templates are based on the average, so we have to make small adjustments for Matthew's head. Now we have a grid, so now the next step is make a silhouette, make an outline of his face and his head. So what I'm going to do right now is, this is his eye line, so I'm going to put the sides of his face, okay, the side of his temple marks right there, and the other one's about here, and it goes down to about his nose line, like on a curve, okay, and it's going to kind of goes down like, see how lightly I'm drawing. Okay, and this is his chin here. Okay, and it follows his chin on this. When we do the analysis, his chin is a little bit off center too. So you can see his chin box is a little bit off the center line. So anyway, he goes up like this. Okay, and it goes over his line. Just trying to put in markers where I think it should go compared to the graph there, and the grid here. So, and that comes down about his mouth line there, and it's on an angle still. It's on an angle, and this goes up there, and it kind of goes in after the brow, and it's about, I think it's about a third of the inside, then about, so let me see, it's about 75%, so half and 4. So I'm going to go like this, like that. Center line, like this. So if I didn't have this, I'd be eyeballing and looking it down, and it's okay. And you can always draw on your, as I say, you can always draw on your source. You can print it out and draw it out. So there you go, and this is curve of this. Okay. So that looks like his face. It's a little bit natural. Nothing when you're doing drawing in real person. Nothing's straight. So if you put a straight line, you'll probably have to correct it. There's always some curve to it. Okay. And we'll do now his ear placement in here. It's about, I didn't put that in the template, but I'm just eyeballing here with my marks at about the same height. So it starts. Hairline is this hair. This is the chin of the ear, and it goes over like this, and it comes back like that. Okay, you can see that. Does it look about right? Okay, and his hair follows outside this line. This is not so important, his hair, because we're going to draw this. Kind of like that, and it kind of goes straight. Okay. Fans out. This is his ear here too. Now it's behind. I like to use my mechanical pencils instead, so I don't have to sharp them. Okay, his eye, his neckline. So this from the mouth line goes down, and this is on the mouth line, goes down. Okay. Okay, so at this stage, what I like to do is do a couple measurements. If I didn't have this, now I'll look at the grid so I can see them out there online. But sometimes, especially when I first started, I couldn't see the errors, and I really want to catch the errors early. So I would, let's say I printed, this one is printed exactly the same size as I need it, which is helpful. But sometimes your source is a different scale, so I would measure. over on this is my source. Okay, that's from eye to chin. It's 60 centimeters. I use centimeters for this. It's a lot easier. And I would go down the chin and say, okay, well, that's about 99. So the destination is 99 and the source was 60. You divide those, 99 divided by 60. Your scale factor is 1.65. Okay. So I can measure any point on this, and if I times it by, well, that's what, 66. So if I times it by 165, it should be almost 10.9. So if I measure this, 10.9, you can see that it's pretty close, but I think I have it a little bit too fat. So I can do this in a couple key measurements, and I can do that now. When I'm using this as my reference, or this could be your computer screen, in live sessions when you have a model sitting there, you don't have time to take out your ruler. But you'll see that they'll use a device like this. This is my maul stick, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with this later. But you can see them kind of doing a Harry Potter wizardry thing, and they're moving their stick around at the full arm length, and what they're doing is measuring the distance. Is what you see. You know that game you used to play when you were kids, where you have your fingers like this, and you're squeezing somebody's head, and if you just get right, you know where it is. You're going, oh, squeeze your head, squeeze your head. Well, that's what they're doing here. They're getting the measurements of each part. Okay. Next step in the process is to place and draw the parts of his face. So I checked some of the dimensions, and everything looks pretty good. I think this is a little bit too low, but that we can change that at the end. That minor adjustments like this, but we know that we got the right dimensions of this face, and the height and the width equal out. And this curvature, I'm still thinking the curvature of his chin is a bit off, but we'll see near there. I can always adjust that as also. So this next phase is the Blockin phase. What I mean by Blockin is that we want to generate something that looks like this. Okay, so we want to place all the parts in here. You can see that I used light strokes. I tried to minimize the number of strokes, and that's what we're going to do in this stage right here. So 3 is our friend. Things in the human face and human body either gets divided into 4 or into 3s. And I see a lot of 3s in faces. The nose, for instance. Let's start with the nose. The nose, between the bridge of the nose and to the tip of the nose, it's usually separated into 3. Now, then there's a nose bone in there, and this is cartilage. So there is some anatomy behind here that actually supports that theory. Okay, so his nose, we'll do the tip of the nose first, and this is the column. Column C is our nose column. Okay, so you can see that I'm going to put a circle for his tip of his nose, and the 2 wings, I'm going to make another, these called ovoids in art, and it goes a little bit past the, and these 2 wings are about the same height. Okay, the tip of the nose kind of goes like this, and then this area, there's the other 2 parts of it. It kind of goes out in the middle, and the brow, you kind of make a triangle shape of that, and you can see that his nose has a kind of a bow in it right there. So I'm going to put that in. So these are all the individual characteristics of Matthew's nose here. So I'll put his brow line here. So this is his eyebrow, and that's too far. It's going to go like that. Eraser. Well, this is a kneaded eraser. I have a couple of erasers. This is another eraser. This is more like a normal one you get from school, but it's on a stick. I really like that one. And this is the other eyebrow. Okay. So let's place his eyes. Now the eyes fit in column D and column B. And we noticed for their analysis that Matthew's eyes are a little bit smaller than the column width. So I'm going to adjust for that. They're going to bring it in slightly on the one side, and this is his tear duct on the other, and it's pretty well bang on. Now the height of his eye, you can see his height between the modified brow line and his eye. I would say it's just a little bit less than half. So there's about half, and then there's his eye. Now the division of his eye, I'm going to do it in 3s. So this is the first part, this is the middle part, and this is the right hand part. And so in the middle part, it kind of has a low sweep, and on the third part, it has a steeper sweep, and it goes down almost to the end, to the edge of the eye line. And then same thing at the on the bottom. By the time it hits the first third, it's straight. So I'm just going to make a curve like this. So, and then on the first, and then it's kind of a straight to his ear duct. And then on the first part, it's a steady, it's almost a straight line. Nothing straight, right? Nothing is straight. Okay. And then his eyelid and his eye socket spot. His eyelid goes up to about, I would say, half the distance between the brow, the brow and his eye. So it's about, starts here, and again, it's in thirds. So the first third kind of goes over on a straight line almost, downwards projection, and then it does a turn curve like that, straight, and then his inner eye goes like this. Notice I'm not doing any shading yet. I just put in sort of the boundaries of all the parts. We're going to do the shading in the next phase. So we're just still working on his eyelid, and it kind of sweeps down like this, and about halfway, and then it goes straight again. Okay, and that looks like a little bit too. This is another eraser I have. It's nice because it's on that tip. Okay. Okay, let's do the other one. Now his other eye compared to this one, since we've done the other eye, if you look at it, his other eye is just a bit lower than, you can use rulers, it's not, so this is where I have the other eye, and on the diagram it's a bit lower, and the peak of it is about half the distance in the column B. So this goes more like this eye is not in thirds, it's actually in half, so you can look at the half, and this half, it kind of just sweeps down to the tear duct, and then both his eye, the bottom of his eyes are on the line almost. It just dips down a bit, and it sort of dips diagonal to the tip, the top part, and then it goes straight again. So, okay. Now, this is where I would want to check because the eyes are so important, and that doesn't look right. This looks like it's too shallow. So I'm going to look at it here. I can use my conversion factor from the other one, but I'm using something that's actually 1:1. So that's about 7 centimeters. Okay, that looks up good. Your eye's better than what I thought. Anyway, we'll have to, eyes you almost have to do in stages. You get it close and then you adjust and then stand back. The character of the eye is so important. And so we spend a lot of time on that. And it goes, so this is a curved part. You can see it's a curved part and there's a straight part. And then here it's all in shadow. So we don't make anything up. It's all in shadow, and then we have this bottom eyelid. I don't know what the eye ball is actual ball, and the your eyelash, or your eyelid, it actually has a curve, it curves over your eye. So okay, so let's do his mouth next. As you see things as you're going around, you can correct them. I mean, we don't have to stay to the script. I think this nose needs a little bit more of adjustment like that. You can see that kind of wings out like this, and his nostrils not that deep, and then curves around, goes back up, and then gradual slope. And I'm gonna mark the side plane of his nose here, and you can see that it goes from kind of a diagonal up to the corner of his eye, and this is kind of sweeps around over more of a curve, and this is a steeper curve on that nose, and then the shadow on this side, the light has to be coming from this direction here because you can see that so I'm gonna mark that on the light's coming from here. So and this kind of curves around, and this is all in darkness. It goes like that. Okay, so we're going to do his mouth. Now his mouth, it fits in between, this is the midlines of B, and this is the midline of D. So people's mouths are usually the one edge of the mouth is kind of like underneath the eyeball, and the other one is kind of using the eyeball. In Matthew's case, it's a little bit shorter. This is from analysis. So it goes about, I would say, 2/3 between these two lines. And again, thirds. Thirds are our friends. In the center, his center of his mouth is a little bit off-centered. So they're not very high. So I like to put the edges of the mouth first, and this goes up a little high. So it's only a little bit on a slope here. So his left side is on the line, and his right slope is not on the line. Again, I like to break down lips into threes. So there's a third part here, the middle part, and there's the two side parts. And they're kind of, in the middle part, that's where you have to filter them. That's the center part, sort of like it looks like a heart. You know, if you were drawing a heart, it would be kind of a heart shape in this part. And then it goes, and then once after the heart, after the third part, then the side happens, and it's kind of more of a gentle slope. So it bows out a bit. Okay, and his mouth, opening of his mouth, it kind of goes up, down, if this hits the line, it comes kind of up again, and this side kind of swoops down, and it kind of bows. And this side is kind of the heart of his lips there, and this side's not as high as the other one. This one's a bit higher. It's a little more steeper there. And that curves down. Curves almost down right to the flat, and so you can see it kind of swoops down. Now, his bottom lip is about twice as big as his top lip. So then again, threes. It's one, that's about halfway, and then there's the end of it, the bottom of his lip. So it looks like to me that this is his bottom lip protrudes out, so it's catching some light. So you'll see this is a little bit lighter than the other, but we're not doing that yet. We're just doing we're just doing the Blockin right now. I always have to tell myself, don't shade yet, don't shade. This is Blockin. The reason why that is, we can make mistakes here, and it's a lot easier to fix. If I start shading this in his eye and it's like perfect, then I find that it's too small compared to the other one, then I have to erase it all. So this is why we do it in stages. So his bottom lip it's kind of asymmetrical. It whips down like this, but that's what makes him him. So you just can't say, well, I'll just make it symmetrical and just draw them all the same. And then his corner versus mouth. Remember, the bone, his jawbone is like this, and his top of his skull, this is connected. This part here is connected. So if his skull, so you'll have places on the side of the side of your mouth has to have enough space to stretch. So it's kind of like your shot vacuum, where you have to store the hose somewhere. Well, it's not really like that, but anyway, I don't know why I got that analogy. I just say that you have to have place to store it. So you can open your mouth really wide, so there's going to be skin there waiting to open. So it has to be stored somewhere. Okay, so his chin box. This is mouth. Under his nose, there's the mouth and the chin box, and then the chin itself. Again, into threes, 1, 2, and 3. So his chin box is the bottom third, and it's a little bit higher than the average. I want to say normal, because there's no normal when you're talking about people. It's all different. But if you do a study of 20,000 faces, one is not going to be normal. That's just going to be more average. Okay, so this is kind of an upside down mustache, or like it looks like a mustache almost. The chin box kind of follows, and you can see it kind of goes like this. Okay, so that's the part, and I'm gonna do a few measurements. I don't have to record that. This looks like it's too short. I think that if you look at this, it's more of a, and then it kind of swoops down like that. So that's, if I had to pick in that, and that's on the third line, and it goes from one to the other, and that's another third line here. It goes over, and then there's quite a steep stroke. So I'm going to clean that up a bit. Okay, not more. That doesn't look his face. So another thing, and I still don't like this. I'm going to make this a little bit more curved, and then come down, because this more looks like a symmetrical, and it's not. And this kind of has more of a bow to it, and then this has more of a gentle slope. Okay. Well, I have the details without the markings and see what it looks like. Yeah, maybe this is a little bit more. What do you think? I'm just doing an evaluation. This slope doesn't look like it's steep enough here for here. See how easy it is for me to change this stuff right now? Okay, and that slope is not high enough. So this eyebrow kind of goes like this, and then this kind of feeds into his eyebrow. And then it does there's a straight part, and then there's a curved part. And once you get these in, you can look at images that doesn't have the divisions on it. So let me see. It goes like that. It goes up more like that. And then that looks. And I still don't like this. It's kind of more flat here, and then it kind of bows out like that, and then it goes up. Okay. And his collar's about this size of there. It's on the same size here. Surface collar also the same as the chin box there. Okay, goes like that. Okay, and okay. So his nose, his tip of his nose really comes down more, and there's more of a straight part of his tip of his nose. It's more like that. But you have to look at it. So I'm talking about this is his face here. You see how there's a kind of goes straight there. It's a very and like that. And once you put the shading in, some of this stuff looks off, but it's just because the shading makes it more look like 3D, and it's all an illusion. Like This is not him, so we're making it look like him. So it's all just right there. It's an illusion, but also we're drawing on a flat surface. So the shading makes it look more 3D. So I think the Blockin. Oh, I should probably do the light pattern. So the light's coming from here. So there's a big white highlight area, kind of like goes up to the top and goes like this, more like that. And then you have a front plane of your forehead, and then you have two side planes. That's from John Osorio's head models. And so often you get light pattern changes on plane changes. And that's this glamour photo where they have lights everywhere, and so you don't get any of that. Yeah, I would say that to make a good portrait, you have to find a good portrait reference. And I like this. I really like this reference from Art of Headshots because it has the shadow in here, and I really like the faces that have shadow on it, because when you're doing a drawing, it looks more like 3D instead of if there was lights coming everywhere, then this wouldn't be in shadow, and so you wouldn't get any of that reference. So I look for photos that have nice shadows on them. I probably looked at, I don't know, 20 or 30 photos of Matthew McConaughey before I decided to do this one. So anyway, his lips kind of look too high to me. Okay. So there's a plane of his face. It's about right around here, side, and then again on just where his eyebrow kind of turns. There's a side there. As you find that as you put more pieces in and you can use other things as references, then you'll find that you'll see some errors that you made. Okay, so his skull is underneath there. And you can really see this on Matthew's face here. As you can see the molar bone or cheekbone right there. And both of them right there. That comes down. You can visualize a skull like that. And his molar bone is kind of curved like this, his cheekbone like this. And so you have to reflect that on the drawing. So let me see. So cheekbone kind of ends in the middle. And it kind of curves around. It makes a curve. Okay. And then it swoops down. And this is kind of like Riley's rhythms of the face. You'll see that in one of the diagrams. There's a rhythm of his face that comes down. There's another one that comes like this. And you can see that there's kind of a hollow in his cheek right there. So this is where those two rhythms match up. And it's about this high. You'll see that this one is more like that. So conversely, on this side here, you have the muscles of your mouth in a circular pattern. So often you'll see edges like that as well. So that comes down, and this is where the cheek and his mouth muscles meet, and that kind of goes down like that, and then this kind of swoops up, so halfway, and comes up. Now my first drawing, this is the third time I've done this drawing because I wanted to practice, and the first time I didn't do this properly, and I looked at it and at the very end going, what's wrong with this? I don't understand, and it's because I didn't put the highlight right in. It was a kind of a weird cheek. His cheek didn't have a divot where I put a divot, so of course it doesn't. But that's all in the learning process. It's kind of what's fun about it. Is you kind of like you put this in, and then a little while later, and it kind of comes down like a V. This thing too. It's very unique on his face, so you don't want to get that wrong because all of a sudden it won't look like him. So then kind of like that. You can see it kind of looks like Texas. You know, the state of Texas right under here. I guess I don't know where he's from. Maybe he's from Texas. I don't know. I didn't do my research on him that way. It kind of sounds like he's from Texas doing that Lincoln commercial. Okay. So what was that movie that he was in about they were police officers working on cases? That was around Texas, wasn't it? Anyway, I know that's just the movie. Okay, so his cheekbone here, his jaw comes down like this, and his cheek and his zygomatic bone underneath there, and this is where that comes down. So there's another rhythm, kind of like on this side, but it's actually not as pronounced. So that comes down, and it almost goes down to his tip, and then it kind of slides down. I find doing marks on here, like you could print this out and put your own marks in, you can follow as a grid. I find though that when we take that away, we'll clean up some of these edges because I think it looks too mechanical at this point. We're going to make it look more freer when we do the shading. We're going to put this away. Okay, and let's see. This is kind of like the other thing here is that's too narrow. What do you think? Put his eye in? Eyeball? Or pupil? I guess it's iris. The pupil's in the middle. So his eye, you can see from the reference, this eye is definitely bigger than this one. Now, if that's going to be we're looking from this direction, I think his one eyelid just opens up a little bit more than the other, that just makes him unique. That's something that we don't really want to correct because I don't think that is a correction. I think that makes him him. Okay, so you can see that the eye, put the eyeball in, and then again it's in thirds. See the two sides and the center. It's almost, the center part's a bit bigger than the, okay. If you're going to mess up on an eye, you make it bigger than smaller. See, this is not right. See, I think it's still, I know what my ruler says, but that doesn't look right to me. So that looks more like him. It's a little bit higher there. Okay, yeah. Okay, I think that's good for the Blockin. So I verified my Blockin drawing. I propped this on an easel and I took a look at it standing back. There's a few things I noticed that I had wrong. For instance, this here wasn't far enough out. This is the side of his face. This over here, I couldn't see from my printout until I actually stood back. This is why I recommend that after this stage, use an image on a computer where you can see more depth. My printer's not very good, so yeah, you don't really see them until you actually sit back and look at them. But the temples on each side had to be defined, and so this was too straight. The eye still didn't look right. It's probably still, this is too high. So if you look at the eye, this is about a third the distance of this. So you take half of this, it's in threes, 1, 2, and 3. So I had it a little bit high. And again, the cheekbones I had too low and not enough flat part on them. These two cheekbones have to match up. And so I had them not here. And I put the filter in. And so there's a few issues. I still look to go through all the places. Oh, this wasn't going down on a great enough slope. It was not steep enough, so I had to make this steeper. And I put a valley here, you see. And this is the glabella here. You get this fan, usually in there's a depression in your face. This is where your muscles come in for your eyebrows. And there's usually a depression there with the plane change of your nose here. So there's usually a glabella here. That's what they call that. I didn't have that in there. So it's really good to verify because after this stage, it's a lot harder to fix. I can just erase it. Also, before we go to the next stage, also we need to erase some of our guidelines. So I use a kneaded eraser because it doesn't make all the marks, but you can. And it doesn't have to be completely gone because we're going to put a layer of graphite on that. But these were two. You can see how this kneaded eraser is great for this kind of work. I also use this for doing figure drawings where I like to get the general shape and then I erase back and just so you can just see it underneath. So then you start fresh again. Okay, so I'll do that. No, I don't have to record this, but I'm just going to erase all this, and when we start the next phase, all these lines are going to be gone, and they're just going to have the Blockin lines. I hope you enjoyed part 1. I posted part 2 to take our Blockin and to add the details and the shading. I've also provided my version of the Blockin, so if you want to print off and compare it with yours, that'd be great. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.